We have scorecards on our values. We have a culture audit which gives scorecards for function, for region, for business unit, etc. So very, very specific scorecards are there. Diversity. So if you are aiming for number of women employed, number of specially able, number of any specific ethnic group, region, etc., then there is a diversity scorecard that is published. Attrition, of course. People process management. Again, you have scorecards around that. How many people process managements were adhered to? What was the engagement of the people? How did they measure themselves, etc. And then, of course, our OHS, which is the engagement survey that happens. Again, very, very clear by population, by function, by region, etc. The capability agenda is a full year agenda around learning and development. Again, it is organization-wide mandatory programs that we feel every person in the organization needs to go through, and therefore specific action plans around these as to what each individual needs to do. So the learning and development participation, the people move. So if you really have a great team, for example, and I've developed you greatly, then what is the impact of that? That means when you apply for another job within the company, you should be getting it. So how many of your people have actually got those jobs? How many people have moved is a great indicator of this. The bench strength, if I'm greatly at developing my people, then obviously when I go to another position, there should be 3 people waiting to step into my shoes. Do I have it? Do I don't have it? Those are some of the clear metrics around that. Then manager quality. How do I build myself as a manager? I lead people. I get a scorecard. Every half a year, I get a scorecard on various parameters as to how I'm managing, rewarding, communicating, etc. How do my people feel about me? And therefore, this is a great scorecard, not only for myself, for my team. So is my team also doing the same thing? Do I take up coaching on an ongoing basis? So all these are metrics that happen. And then, of course, personal growth. That means, am I really working on my own personal learning and development? Do I know the business? Do I do critical projects? So these are some of the, this is a real case study for you to think about and ask me any questions. Clear guiding principles around it is what culture do I want to build? So that's really the big first question. Then what behaviors do I want to encourage? How have my employees actually behaved in the way that I want them to behave? So do I track it? What's the impact of that behavior? And then the key other guiding principles are be fair, be consistent, and be clear, so that there is no anomaly in people's mind. Why did he get a higher rating and why did she get a lower rating? Because it's consistent, the same metrics is there for the CEO and for the sales guy. So everybody has the same metric, same parameters that of performance. And of course, we base everything on our values, which is really sustained growth through empowered people, building with responsibility and trust. So that's really the culture that we're aiming for, and we do that, and we measure it, and we give people scorecards on that. So that is my piece. That's good. I exceeded expectations. And thank you. Any questions, please jot down, and later on we can take that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Suchitra. Thank you very much. I think you have completely blown us, and this is mind-boggling. This is really, I'm sure it was a huge wake-up call for everybody. The pace at which she moved, the things she covered in flat 6 to 7 minutes was brilliant. I was struggling here to take notes, and I was just about, because I have got a real big role of, kind of summarizing everything. I thought, my God, will I be able to do this job now? But I think a great presentation. Thanks so much, Suchitra. And we all know Pepsi does brilliant stuff as far as HR is concerned, apart from their business stuff. Now, the second person up would be Dr. Anil Chawla from Tata Consultancy Services. Yes, sir.
Very good afternoon again. Yeah. See, Yogesh is tracking from there who's sleeping, and I'm tracking across. So rest assured that we won't let anybody sleep. Frankly speaking, when Dr. Ekta sent me the invite, there was another topic that we were discussing for my session. But then she said that, can you take this? To be honest, I wanted to title this presentation of mine, which is on performance measurement, people performance measurement, myth or reality. I've been in the HR role for some time. Before that, I've done various roles in TCS, and before that in the bank. I have mixed views on quantifying people's performance. I'll see that, I'll share it with you, the perspective that TCS has on this. There are some dilemmas also, which I think most of the HR professionals face. The broad coverage that I'll have is that TCS, we have a business excellence model, so everything is driven by that. I'm going to give you a view of what is the business excellence model is, and where does quantifying people performance fit in the overall schema of organizational performance. That's one. Second, of course, what role the measurement part has in this. We've been there for 42 years now. Our IT systems, in fact, our performance appraisal system itself is more than 10 years old. The computerized system, I mean. Otherwise, it has been there as long as the company has been there. So I think we are fairly mature on that front, but still the questions keep arising. Broadly, we use the Kaplan's balanced scorecard approach. So I'll give you a flavor of how we use that. And then, of course, from gut to quantification, which in my opinion is still a struggle to some extent. Not 100%, but to some extent it is still a struggle. Broadly, if you look at how TCS defines excellence, which it strives for in all the endeavors that it does is, it comprises of few elements: the leadership part, learning at the organizational level and individual level, agility, because our industry demands extreme agility for the situation that you're facing, valuing anybody who's associated with TCS, whether as an employee or any other stakeholder, innovation, which is the key. Then focus is on the customer, focus on future. The most important part here I've highlighted is that management by fact is a key element of excellence in TCS, which is the theme of quantification. And then, of course, when you talk of measurement, it cuts across all aspects, whether it is the leadership performance, whether it is the performance of your strategic planning process, whether it is the performance of your customer-facing processes, the sales process, the delivery process, everything that comes under the sun. And then, of course, how do you create value for your customer? This entire thing we do using the open systems perspective, which is a pretty standard framework used across the globe. Now, there is a mission, so you need to translate into some measurable outcomes. Now, this flow typically indicates that, okay, why do we exist? What do we believe in? What's the vision that we have? The game plan that we have? Then the overall framework, which is the balanced scorecard, which helps us assess the performance on the 4 perspectives of balanced scorecard. And then, of course, it drills down right to the individual objectives of all the employees of TCS. This is the business excellence model. Please pay attention to this number 4, which is measurement, analysis, and knowledge management. You can see, don't get confused by the numbers 120, 85. These are the numbers which are relating to the business excellence application that we submit every year to the Tata Quality Management System. But the important thing to note is that whether it is leadership performance or the performance of strategic planning process or customer or the HR aspects or the delivery processes or the final business results that we have, the measurement, analysis, and knowledge management cuts across all these functions. So there is no denying the fact that quantification is important. Anything which cannot be measured should not be done. That's the broad motto that exists. However, in my 33 years of experience in a couple of industries, banking and IT, what I realize is that sometimes it's a myth. I don't know how many of you have seen this Dilbert clipping. I just found it interesting, so I put it. Are you able to read it from there? At least some people are able to read it. This is all about corporate strategy. This is how the leadership team often discovers about the corporate strategy of an organization. Anyway, moving on to more serious stuff. This being an HR event, broadly people might be familiar with the balanced scorecard perspective. Essentially financial, customer, internal, which is more the process part, and learning and development perspective. Each of the perspective gives you a framework. How do you measure the company's performance in that area? Now, this is something which we have seriously adopted. Okay. Now, if you look at the myth part that I mentioned in the beginning and the reality part, both broadly get covered in this slide. Our performance management system for employees, typically, you have the standard goal setting process, quarterly, half-yearly, annual reviews. linked to various aspects of an individual's existence in TCS, whether it is competencies, performance on goals, the attitudinal aspects and everything. However, at the end of it, some questions still remain. I'll just give you one example. Typically our SPEED, which is our global system for performance assessment of employees, it has assessment of an individual on the basis of some performance on the goals which are stated, which are fixed at the starting of the period. And then of course the attributes, which are more the permanent aspects of the personality. Now on the basis of that, we take a weighted average and a score comes which is called individual performance factor. Then it is ranked and then we apply the Bell distribution, so that let us say even if your individual performance factor is 4.5 on a 5-point scale, you might still end up being in the middle 25% of the TCS population. But that's a reality because it is all ranked relative to each other. So your individual performance, individual score may mean only something to the extent you relate to the rest of the population. So in a sense, it's all relative. How others have done compared to you also determines on where you stand with respect to your own performance. Now, this has often been a challenge because the bell curve itself gets questioned across the globe. However, we have a large organization, 180,000 odd people, so you have to have a method through which you can assess relative performance of people. Just to be specific, starts with the CEO's balance scorecard, moves to the geography, the delivery center, then the large accounts, and finally it goes to right to the team member level person in a project in TCS. Associate we refer to as employee. Any aspect of people's engagement in TCS, sometimes I feel we are too kind of quantification driven in the sense, compensation of course one expects it should be driven by hard numbers. Some of the cultural aspects, they're also driven by numbers, some other kinds of numbers. Career development, we have a system which tracks the learning history of everybody from the time that the person joins. I'll just give you a glimpse of that. There are mentoring programs across the globe, those also get measured. Then there are some employee engagement activities which also get measured in one form or the other. Sometimes my associates also ask me this question, are we not too number driven? Are we not too quantification driven? Frankly speaking, I also get confused many times that what should I answer? But again, you have to strike a balance somewhere, and I firmly believe that no assessment system for people across the globe is 100% objective. There is a bit of subjectivity that does creep in at some stage or the other in the entire appraisal cycle. So this question still remains with us. Now this was the system that I was referring to. From the time a trainee joins in our, let's say, Trivandrum or Bhubaneswar or some such training center, the quantification starts that, okay, you have been given a quiz, how have you done the quiz? There are scores, so at the end of the individual, the learning program, there is a score that the person gets. Now that score also gets used to give you a choice place of where you will be located. Let's say, for example, the top 5 people in every batch